Good evening. Thank you for coming to this meeting with the town of Shrewsbury and Mass DOT regarding the Route 20 corridor in the town of Shrewsbury. My name is Kristen Lass. I'm the assistant town manager with the town of Shrewsbury, and would just like to recognize that we have Chairman of the Board of Selectmen Mo DiPaolo here and Board of Selectmen member Beth Cassavant here. I'd also like to introduce the town of Shrewsbury's team and Mass DOT's team in a moment. This is a third meeting that we've held regarding a master plan for the Route 20 corridor in the town of Shrewsbury. Representative Kane wishes she could be here this evening, but she's in Boston in session and at various meetings doing her duties there. She was an advocate for having Mass DOT and the town of Shrewsbury work together related to any improvements or necessary changes to the Route 20 corridor based upon the growth that we are seeing, that it being a major thoroughfare between Worcester, Northborough to the east and to the west. And we've had a lot of good dialogue over the past few years related to what can be the improvements to Route 20 and a well thought out plan. So I'd like to introduce Barry Lorian, who's the District 3 Highway Director, Aaron Kinahan, who's with Mass DOT, Bob Stapopoulos, and Paul Nelson with Howard Stein Hudson, and Jeff Howland, who's the town engineer, the DPW director with the town of Shrewsbury, is here as well. So I'd like to turn this over to Barry Lorian for some initial comments, and then Howard Stein Hudson will lead off. And then at the end, we'll definitely have some time for some interactions and some questions and comments. So again, thank you all for coming. There are some chairs over here and scattered in here if those of you standing wish to sit. So again, thank you. We're glad to have a packed house this evening.
Well, thank you, Kristen. I think you've covered a lot of the important things to get the meeting started tonight. Again, my name's Barry Laurie, and I'm the Highway Director for Mass DOT for the District 3 office in Worcester. And we are very happy that you're here tonight. This is a fantastic turnout for our third meeting, probably the fifth time we've actually presented to the town of Shrewsbury. It's exciting to see some younger people in the audience tonight. We are usually blessed with the younger people coming to our meetings, given the topics, but maybe some future transportation engineers out there after our meeting. I will very quickly be asking Paul Nelson from Howard Stein Hudson to bring us through the presentation, but I just wanted to make a couple of quick points before we start. Number one, this is a master corridor plan. So what this is a vision of what we think Shrewsbury Route 20 will look like 5, 10, 20, even 25 years from now. It's an important document for us at Mass DOT. It's an important document for the town. It is a document from which Mass DOT will refer to when we're constructing improvements along the roadway. The town will refer to the master plan, and any private developers who are coming in and mitigating traffic impacts will also refer to the plan. And the idea is that at the end of the day, we have a consistent, uniform cross-section along the corridor. It sets out things like where we want traffic signals to be, where we think traffic signals should be, how many lanes in each direction there should be. And in this case, we're calling for 2 travel lanes in each direction for the entire corridor, length of the corridor. And it speaks to us about how we are going to accommodate pedestrians and bicyclists, which we do on all of our projects now at Mass DOT. As Kristen said, we will be here at the conclusion of the presentation, and we'll stay as long as you want to answer questions. I think the library closes at 9, so they might kick us out at 9 o'clock, but we'll be here until at least 9. Paul, you could take it from here.
Great, thank you, Barry. Thank you. Just to kind of play a little game here. If you're looking for a seat, raise your hand if there's an empty seat next to you. All right, so we do have empty seats. If you want to grab some of those, just want to make sure everybody's comfortable. And I'm giving everybody a second because I'm going to turn the lights down so we can see the presentation. Okay, so to echo the sentiment from both Kristen and Barry, thank you so much for coming tonight. My name is Paul Nelson. I'm part of the project team for Howard Stein Hudson that's assisting both the town and Mass DOT on this project. And so, introductions have already happened, but Barry, Laurie, and Aaron Kinahan from Mass DOT District 3 are here, and myself and Bob Stathopoulos from Howard Stein Hudson are also here. So tonight's agenda is laid out here before you, and the idea is that tonight I just wanted to take some time, probably about 20 minutes, to talk through these items, and it would be, an overview of the master plan, some of the key findings from our work in the plan, some of the steps that were taken to address comments we received from the public, and then also start to outline, as we said, this is a master plan, not actually a project itself, but a lot of projects will come from this master plan. So we've kind of selected 3 of those to talk about how they may, the structure of those projects and how they may be implemented, and then talk a little bit about the next steps for implementation. So again, just to kind of review, what is a master plan? The whole goal of this is to create a unified vision for the Route 20 corridor through the town. And it's too long to be a single project, so that's why it's classified as a master plan. And the idea is that you identify and quantify the primary factors driving the needs for improvement. So are there safety issues, are there congestion issues, are there impacts from future development? Kind of call those all out in advance. And then it provides a conceptual design to improve conditions, and kind of, I like to call it like a kind of a central sheet music that everybody kind of reads off of as you're developing and working in the corridor towards the future. It's not the final design, so it kind of lays out in broad strokes the improvements that need to be seen, but each project will go through its own design process, which includes separate hearings where you work through some of the details. And there's a lot of things in the corridor that would still be addressed, driveway locations, different things like that. And also, there's no funding attached to this, so it doesn't guarantee that all aspects of the plan as laid out will be built on any specific timeline. So, just in general, here's the corridor, and as we said, it runs from, it actually includes some intersections in Northborough, just on the other side of Route 9, and stretches the whole length down into the Worcester City line. It includes intersections like Centec Boulevard, South Street and Green Street, Walnut Street, Grafton Street, Lake Street. These are the areas that we're talking about here. So some of the key findings from the report is that there are definitely intersection and corridor safety issues that we identify by looking at the crash history. Some of the locations that especially have safety issues are Valente Drive and Walnut Street, South Street, Stony Hill Road, Grafton Street at the Route 140 interchange, kind of both of those tied together, and Lake Street. Also along the corridor, you have congestion issues, especially during the peak periods, and also a series of access management. You have a lot of driveways that enter directly onto Route 20, and you know that the speed limit in the corridor is relatively high, so often there's a lot of people trying to take turns out of those driveways, and it's the only means of access. There's also future planned development in the corridor, which would require additional capacity in the corridor. So we've incorporated that and the trips that would result from developments into the future. Basically, the future design will accommodate those new trips. There's also a lack of pedestrian and bicycle accommodations along the corridor, which we sought to address in the master plan. So just to kind of provide a simple picture of what the master plan would provide, and Barry alluded to this, but that the idea is it would provide a uniform cross-section for the roadway, and the cross-section is just how the lanes are laid out. So you'd have 2 travel lanes in each direction on Route 20 with additional turning lanes at the major intersections, so left turns, right turns if needed. You'd include the traffic signal improvements to accommodate those. Sometimes as you add more lanes, you have to put new signals in or rearrange how they're configured. And then we'd also be looking to accommodate bicycles and pedestrians. In this case, the design calls for a shared use path along the south side of Route 20, which would be open to both pedestrians and bicyclists, and then a sidewalk on the north side for the majority of the corridor. And then we're also looking at safety improvements at deficient locations. So some of those places where we've experienced safety problems, you can change the design to make it safer for people to be able to turn out or give them options which are safer. And then We also factored in that there are trade-offs with this master plan right-of-way because it is generally wider than the existing roadway out there, and in some places wider than the right-of-way that exists under state ownership. So there'd be some potential trade-offs when looking at that, and also tied with some of the environmental impacts. Just to see what that looks like. So this is kind of, if you slice the road down the middle, what the master plan concept would look like. Not in every single location, but it's kind of the basis for the cross-section that we built everything off of. And so this would be the south side of Route 20 over here on the right. Can people see the pointer if I put it up on the screen like that? It's over on the right. Okay. So what we'd be providing is a 10-foot shared use path is what that abbreviation stands for. And then between that there'd be a 3-foot buffer at the same level as the path. Then there'd be a 4-foot shoulder before the first travel lane. And then for the vehicle section of the roadway, you provide an 11-foot travel lane in each direction. And what we're proposing is a 4-foot painted buffer between each direction of traffic. And then as you come across the other side, you'd have that same 4-foot shoulder on the pavement level, and then you'd have a 3-foot buffer to the 5.5-foot sidewalk. And in some sections, that's wider when you're providing left turn lanes. A few of the areas, there's so many driveways that we're calling for the creation of a 2-way left turn lane. So that's something where there's kind of a center lane that accommodates left turns in each direction. And then some places, especially in the western end of the corridor near the Edgemere, it gets a little bit narrower. We kind of cut down that buffer in the middle to help squeeze in between in areas where there's less width. So I just wanted to bring out some of the things that we've heard from the public so far in the process. And 3 of the main points that we heard is that there's concern about cut-throughs on Walnut Street of people leaving the Westboro commuter rail station. So as part of this study, we actually looked at the traffic volumes coming out of the commuter rail station and the growth in traffic on Walnut Street. And our observations show that it's likely that traffic is using that from the station. And actually, I'll show you later, but the master plan concept actually changes how Walnut Street accesses Route 20 in a way that we think will help discourage cut-through traffic on there. But I think another echo to this master plan is that the discussions on these points can continue as things come into play. And so if we can continue to monitor it and work with the district to do that in the town. Then the 2 other issues are tied to safety. So safety turning from the South Street intersection. We took a look at that, and a special attention was brought to that by folks from the school there. And we looked at the signal warrants. So to install a traffic signal, there's a series of thresholds that you have to meet tied to the volumes. And basically, we took a look at if it meets those thresholds, and it does not. So we're not proposing to put a signal there in the master plan, but you can take a look at it and talk through it when we get to that. I'm going to show you some of the plans in that area so we can talk through the elements that will be included. And the master plan concept calls for the prohibition of left turns from South Street. There's a few more chairs coming in if anybody wants to sit down. Yeah, so it's the one that comes in, that section of South Street that comes in from the south on Route 20. And then the other one was safety entering from Route 20, entering Route 20 from Stony Hill Road. That was brought up from some of the residents that live on that street. And again, the volume on Stony Hill Road is too small to warrant a signal there. But that in the concept, master plan concept, we incorporated a 2-way left turn lane that will hopefully provide for safer left turns. So the 3 areas that I'm just going to go over in a little bit more detail, and we'll break after this presentation, and we actually have plans showing the full length of the corridor that we can talk about if you have specific questions.
From the south street, so there is no light in the master plan.
Correct. And I'll show you that. It's about 2 or 3 slides, and I can show you that.
There is a school there, so.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so then doesn't need to be addressed?
We were addressing it, the safety issues there in a different way than creating a signal.
Okay, like doing a right turn and go to the intersection.
That's the idea.
That's already in there.
Okay, well, we can definitely, I mean, we're looking for feedback on this concept, so we'll definitely hear your comments as they come through. So the three areas that we're looking at is Grafton Street, which is a high crash location. And part of that would be any place that's a high crash location is eligible for separate funding dedicated to improving safety issues. So that's one of the reasons we're showcasing that. Lake Street intersection, there's adjacent development that's planned for the area. So that's an example of how a project from this master plan could go forward tied to private development that may actually not be funded by a MassDOT project that's created. And then South Street to Valente is an area of the corridor where there isn't currently any project in the pipeline that we think maybe there's a possibility there could be, and that we'd have to go through the MassDOT procedure for initiating a project, justifying it, and identifying funding. So here's the master plan concept in the vicinity of Grafton Street. So just to get your bearings, Grafton Street is running up top to bottom on the left here. This is the Flynn's gas station on the upper right. And so, this is, in this concept, you're now seeing the two travel lanes through in each direction with the added turn lanes. And what we did here is we have a left turn lane onto Grafton Street that matches up with a left turn lane to enter the gas station. And the other thing that it would change is this is the transition into the 140 interchange, where you would now see actually the lanes. Right now, currently, you can go through here, and if you think you're destined on Route 20 to go through, you actually end up going on to 140, so you have to move over. So we think that's one of the major safety issues there. So we've now removed that so that if you're actually going to go on to Route 140, you have to move to the right into a new lane. So that's an example of some of the ways that we'd be solving the safety issues there, and there's definitely more detail on that. Do you think it'd be better to take questions at the end?
Why don't we?
Yeah, if that's okay. Thank you. And so then this is the master plan as shown in the Lake Street area, and so this is the Edgemere Drive-In property to the south of it, and then Lake Street coming in again from the north, from the top of this photo. And again, here you see that the development would actually add a whole other light to the intersection that doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist currently, and then you've got the cross section widened out to be the two lanes in each direction. And then as we shift to the eastern end of the corridor, this is Valente Drive with the Christmas tree shops to the north here, to the top. And under this concept, it would actually introduce a signal here, and also change how Walnut Street accesses Route 20. And so I'm actually going to just walk over here and show you. So currently, this is actually a call out from here. We had a little bit of trouble fitting it all on the slide because of the proportions. The idea is Walnut Street currently comes in over here to the left, to the west. And what we're proposing is that Walnut Street would actually only be a right turn in from Route 20, so that you actually couldn't take any turns out of Walnut Street to Route 20, given that there's just some safety issues of having intersections so close to each other, and also given the grading that's there, we just thought that it was unsafe to actually have a design where anybody could turn out of there. So instead, what we're proposing is several hundred feet back from the Route 20 intersection, actually building a new road through this property to tie into Valente Drive. And so if you take this section of Valente Drive and move it over to here, is what you're seeing. So
where's the Y on this?
the Y is up over here, right? Have I got my bearings right? Yeah. So it's kind of up this way. So the idea is that you'd come down Walnut Street, and if you wanted to go to Route 20, you'd actually take a right on this new road, intersect Valente Drive right where this orange dot is, and then turn onto here and use this signal to get onto it. So that way we're consolidating all the turns to the signalized location, which is safer for everybody. And then a similar setup actually is present at South Street and Green Street. So here, this is just an overview of the existing conditions, but what we also added to the map in blue are kind of the identified wetlands through the area, because it's really important to how we took a look at this section and what we're proposing for improvements. So again, looking at the same issue where you have South Street and Green Street, which has a signal, and you have South Street just to the east of that with no signal. At first we thought maybe we could do something similar to Valente Drive, where you'd have South Street tie into Green Street so that the turns could be made from there. But what you can see, the major impediment to that is the wetlands that are identified here. And basically, it's, a project is feasible if you have maybe a minimal impact on wetlands, but because this actually follows a stream, a body of water, there really was nowhere that you could cross and not have a significant impact on wetlands. So as we looked at that, we had to look in other ways to address the safety issues there. So that's why I just wanted to provide that as backdrop to that. And actually, that was a big question from the Board of Selectmen, so we wanted to make sure that we added that to the presentation. So what we proposed in this plan, this is now South Street down here. And then this is Green Street and South Street coming in from the north. And again, you can kind of see the general alignment of the wetlands within the project area. So what you'll see here is that what we're proposing is a right turn out only. So if you're exiting from South Street, you could only turn right to go east on Route 20. And if you wanted to, you could do a U-turn at the next signalized intersection. That's one way. And then the other way is you could go left on South Street, and you'd have to detour around a few roads to get to Green Street to come back out. And then just general changes in the cross-section. We're adding left turn lanes for these driveways so that people can pull out of traffic to make those turns. And then also adding turn lanes and through lanes at the intersection on Route 20. So kind of thinking of these three projects and how projects become a reality, we wanted to kind of lay out what the next steps for each of them would be, because like I said, they kind of set a good example of three ways that projects can occur off of this master plan. So Grafton Street is an identified safety issue, or there's an identified safety issue in at the intersection. So that's something where MassDOT takes a look at the unsafe intersections in the state and prioritizes funding for those intersections. And since Grafton Street is on that list, there's the ability to fund design and construction through that program. So what they would need to do is actually just complete the next phase of that. Some of the plans on that are currently under development. And then the funds would be programmed through the TIP process, which is the state process for allocating federal funds to transportation. As a separate way for something to become, a project to become a reality, Lake Street is an example where a development, it can spur improvement in the corridor. And there, basically the proponent of that development submits their plan to MassDOT, which reviews the potential traffic impacts and proposes and requires mitigation of the developer. And so in that case, and then in this case also, the improvements there won a separate grant program tied to economic development investment. And so those combined are kind of the avenue and mechanism that are being used to improve the Lake Street intersection to match the master plan. And finally, South Street to Valente Drive. Those are projects identified through this master plan as potential improvements. And so that actually has to start at kind of square one, where you use the information that we've collected in this master plan to show that improvements are justified on safety basis and things like that. But you go and you work, and so for that one, the town can work with MassDOT through District 3 to initiate the project by filling out what are called project need and initiation forms. And that's something where you outline and define the project so that it can enter the list of projects potentially funded and be prioritized within that. So that's the end of the presentation, just providing an overview. Maybe we'll take some questions now, but I know, thank you for being patient. The other thing I just wanted to add is after we take questions, we'll set up a few different stations where you can look at the plans, because we have them on sheets, and I don't want everybody to be kind of leafing through them. So I think based on the questions, we'll try and identify stations for specific areas. Like I imagine there'd be a lot of interest in the South Street and Green Street areas, so we'll try and dedicate a specific place to that. And if there's any other questions that come up, we can also pull those plans separate and kind of announce that to the group. So for now, and then, I know, sorry, definitely. Do you want everybody to line up, or do you want to just kind of call people as it goes?
If you're able to stand when you speak after you're called upon, we'd appreciate it. We're actually taping this for Shrewsbury Media Connection, so it will be, it's not live tonight, but it will be rebroadcast over the course of the next few weeks. So when you are called upon to speak, if you could just stand in your seat, that's where you're seated, that's perfectly fine. Just so everyone in the audience and we all can hear what you have to say. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, why don't you ask your
Can I use your slide?
Yeah, where would you like me to go back to? South Street?
To South Street.
Yep.
So I'm a 8th grade teacher on South Street. If you could take me back one more slide
Yep,
so
I
we
gotcha.
can see our school. We're right here, right? So we dismiss 180 students every day from here. We currently just bought the building right here, and we are renovating it for a preschool, kindergarten, daycare
Another
right
50
here.
kids.
So we'll be adding more volume to the school right here. What I have to say is I moved to Shrewsbury in 2005 with my family of 4. I have 4 children, and they grew up in the Shrewsbury private school first and then public school, and access roadways in Shrewsbury as well. And this week, for example, I'm sharing my car with my younger son who's on spring break from Boston College, and every single time he leaves the school to go someplace else, I always tell him, please don't make a left-hand turn on South Street. You know, I don't want to lose you on the second year of college because you decided to turn left on South Street. And for the first 7 years that I taught at the school, I did make that left-hand turn on South Street because I live near Dean Park, and my access to this area is through South Street, or to go down past Valentine and actually now merge onto Route 9 in the newly constructed merge that is now very safe. Before it wasn't, and I got rear-ended twice, and now that it's so safe, I can get it back on there and go to my home on Walnut Street. So, I'm getting to the question. Really, I am. So what I worry about now is, number one, I saw bike lanes and pedestrian lanes, and that, when I drive on South Street every day for the last on Route 20 for the last 20 years or so, 15 years or so, I can't imagine someone driving their bike on Route 20 because it is a life or death situation on Route 20 with 18-wheelers, utility trucks, and people who think that the speed limit is not exactly the speed limit. So I can't even imagine someone riding their bike on that road as if somehow it's a casual, friendly, everyday kind of driving area. I go into Boston all the time, whether it be a BC, BU, Northeastern, and I've seen bike lanes come up everywhere, but they came up in areas that made sense. And this road doesn't make sense right now. You say no left-hand turn, right here, but the speed at which the cars are moving, no signal, means that I still have to negotiate a right-hand turn safely past, let's say 1 or 2 lanes. You said 4 lanes, right? 2 will be going to the east and 2 to the west,
Yep.
right? So I'm going to negotiate that turn, and even now, at my age, negotiating that turn seems kind of difficult. I have a big car, and it takes a long time for us to get around the bend. But it's not funny, actually, because, for example, the one accident that our students had last year, I was standing behind them. I was a car behind the car. Well, there was my student, there was a teacher, and there was me. And I saw the utility truck plow into them. And I saw that van flip 2 times. And I had in there my alumni, my 2 8th grade students, and 2 younger students at the school. Regardless, was there a mistake made? Probably. But should a mistake cause your life, end your life? That's the question. Should a mistake, something, misjudgment, lead to an accident that could be the last accident you ever had? No, we always hope that a mistake, these things happen, and, we have insurance for those reasons. But so even the negotiation of a left-hand turn, a right-hand turn doesn't make any sense to me at all, right there. Not with the volume of students leaving. In this area, I have family that lives here too, with young, new, inexperienced drivers coming up that street right now. I don't know if anyone in this room right here has family not related to the school, but in that area, who have to negotiate that left-hand turn every day. that is intense. I don't know what I would do, you know, as a parent, like what kind of instructions, because you know, you can tell your kid to do anything, but you know, they're not gonna listen to you. So I wonder, when you're thinking about this whole corridor, the fact that you're imagining a pedestrian walk and a bicycle lane scares me. There are 18-wheelers on this road moving at speeds that are unbelievable. If they were to have to stop because I didn't make that right-hand turn at the correct time and place, they would jackknife. Because they could not get their car down, or their truck down to the speed they need is to stop that vehicle. So how would this be possible? This is not your friendly, everyday neighborhood drive play. This is like, watch out. In some areas, yes, you're more relaxed. In that area, no. You are making decisions that could be serious ones. So my question is, just how do you imagine this bike lane, this pedestrian lane, and really just solving it with the right-hand turn?
So what, actually I just have a question back to you on what element of the right-hand turn concerns you, the ability of being able to, so like, would you rather not have the turn there at all, or do you really think that a light is what's warranted there to make even the right turns?
To control traffic.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, to be safe, so that I don't feel like I'm taking my life into my own hands. Just like I mean, you can tag my car GPS at whatever you want. I never make that left-hand turn, and I haven't made it for years.
Sure, that's very understandable.
I'm getting older, I'm misjudging, I leave school at night, gets dark early. There's no way. That is not, I mean, and I'm not a scared driver. I've been driving for a long time.
Sure.
But
May I
that's
may I ask
just-
something?
Question.
May I
Sure,
add
the
something?
question.
Yeah.
What do you anticipate as a speed limit?
Oh, yeah, especially if you ride a bike down.
May I add an information too?
Yeah, the speed limit through there is 45 or 50.
A truck going through.
So 60 for some.
Sure.
That's what we have right now, and it's a disaster.
May I add a piece of information to that?
Yeah, sure.
This portion here is downhill.
Yeah.
Yep.
And at this light particularly, the 18-wheelers, I find, blow the red light because there isn't enough warning and anticipation. So what happens to me on a regular basis is waiting extra at this intersection, that extra moment to make sure that nobody's gonna blow the light.
So when it turns
But
green,
it
you wait.
impacts, exactly,
Yep.
but that's fine. But to your comment about the right-hand turn still being a little bit dangerous, right here, as the trucks come down this hill, gaining speed and momentum, and blow this light here, then that becomes an additional speed issue for right there. And I feel like there's not enough information, you know, for the drivers or a warning. And I believe at the last meeting you had discussed having a signal ahead type of a sign put higher up the hill or something like they do on Route 9. But I did want to just add that experience of turning right and the speed involved is contributed to by, I think, like the landscape of it and the fact that it's a little bit blind here. So it's not just entering from South Street, it's that kind of Route 20 dynamic that happens. And then my question and follow-up to that is that I've noticed in Wellesley particularly that they have some one-sided lane lights for some of the people turning onto Route 9. In some of their longer expanses there, I've noticed that they'll have a light that is one-sided right here, allowing these people to get out and then make their U-turn to get onto the other side
I
of
see.
Route
You
9.
meaning it only stops one direction of Route 20?
It
in
only
this case?
stops one direction of Route 20, and it's not, you know, a bilateral thing. So, to my mind, having a second option to stop here might help with some of that anxiety with the right-hand turn and allow for your U-turn to actually be usable and safe instead of having to go all the way to Valente.
I'm sorry? Yeah. Maybe we'll take all the questions on this and then
Well,
kind of
let's let everybody voice
That's
their
why we're
opinion.
here.
on this.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking I have like some responses I want to talk about, but I
Yeah.
think I want to hear everybody's
Yeah.
questions first.
Thank you.
We own this property right here,
Mhm.
which is Max at Work, so people turn in to get their computers fixed. There's been numerous accidents here, okay? There's a stoplight here. I don't know how you're gonna put another stoplight here.
So just to clarify, there's no plan
I
in
know.
this. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And we were actually planning on I have my own business in that building, expanding that to put 10,000 square feet on. So if you're thinking of doing that, are you also gonna increase South Street? And do I now have a problem that I shouldn't invest in this because this plan is gonna take some of my property?
Okay, so your question, just to make sure I got your question right, you're asking how much of a property impact a widening of Route 20 would have on your
Right,
property?
and on South Street, because I'm assuming you're gonna do something on this part of
Yeah,
South Street.
yeah.
And if you're gonna put a stop sign, it's in the plan to put some sort of traffic signal here, there's really not much room here.
Right.
That, you know, I don't know how they would work that out, but yeah, I wanna know what kind of impact this has on me before I start doing my developments.
So we can take a look at your property
Okay.
following the meeting.
That'll be great.
And we'll take a look at it together.
Yeah, well, the main highway was a lot of people that hit.
Right, there are a lot of accidents. Great, thank you.
May I?
Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Nora. I'm the principal at Alhambra, and before I begin, my gratitude to the Department of Transportation for being here and for doing this multiple times over, and also a shout out for all the young people that are in this room. This is a great example of civic engagement, and I really think that they really need an applause from us. And so, good job, guys. They're all here because they're concerned. They're all here because they make that turn twice daily. They're here because their friends have been in crashes. They're here because their friends have been taken to the ER at UMass Memorial and come back at 10 at night. That's why they're all here. They're all here. They're very grateful for the chance to be here, but they're also a tad disappointed that this question is asked every single year. And I'm sitting here today hearing that we have a master plan, which is only a plan. This is a project. We will have multiple projects to it. And this project currently does not even have funding. So Lake Street will have priority because there's a big business coming up there and they're going to fund part of it. Grafton is going to be funded because it has X number of accidents that have taken place. But you 183 kids who make this turn twice daily, nah, not really. This is going to be a project that still is going to take baby steps until we figure out whatever. So I'm sitting here today really thinking, oh, okay, so I don't have a solution walking back home today. And I didn't have a solution in June 2019 when I stood and spoke just the same way. And I don't have a solution from the previous meeting either. And all we're really asking for is for you to do something for those 2 times that we make that dangerous turn. In the morning, when we are arriving, and at dismissal when we're getting out of there. It's that simple. It's a flashing sign that says there's a school there. And the town is repeatedly telling us that we cannot put a sign there because this is not the town's property, because this is a highway. So we can't have a flashing sign on Route 20 that says that this is school hours going on in here. We have a sign on South Street that doesn't do anything for us. Who cares if there's a little sign there on South Street? It doesn't do anything, right? Everybody over here will vouch for the fact that the traffic is insane. The speed limit, nobody's following that speed limit. There is 18-wheelers. They're ramming into cars. Businesses that are around there have seen accidents take place. May nobody ever be in that situation that I was in last year, holding a second grader with his head bleeding. May nobody be in that situation. But you know what? We haven't done anything to remediate it. We have a plan, which I don't know when it's going to be fulfilled. It would be great, yes. At this point, whatever you give me, I'm going to say it's great. Yes, I want that no left turn, and I want to be able to make a U-turn at Valente. Great. But I don't know when that's going to happen, and that's my problem. Because my kids are making that turn every day. They're going to keep making that turn till June, right? And I can't have a flashing sign there. I can't have a no left turn sign put there now. Like, I have to wait till whenever, eternity, for that little sign to come up. That's the problematic that I'm facing. Because for me, this is a great urgency. These are, I mean, how many cars? 2 times every day. There's backup into our parking lot at dismissal time. You know what? So the solution, I don't know what the solution is. Maybe it's really hard. Maybe it's a traffic signal, a half a signal, whatever, bike lanes, I don't care. Right now, my ask is very simple. Can we just have a sign there that slows the traffic down at those hours it's flashing? Can we have a no left turn sign there? Those signs are not going to cost a lot as a traffic light would. But really something needs to be done urgently. This cannot wait to become a project in 2025 or whatever, you know. It really has to be done now. That's it. Thank you. And the kids are in red, yellow, and green because they're trying to be traffic lights.
Oh, nice.
In case you missed that.
I did miss that. Thank you. I really appreciate it. So,
I have a question. I get that there's a school there, but
Sure.
it's a private school. And a sign I don't think is a big ask either, but how big of a detour is it to take a left and go down and loop around to Green Street?
3 minutes. It takes literally 3 minutes for us to
And
do
that's
it.
what I do.
It's 3 minutes for us to do, but
You can turn, the left turn is the hard turn.
no, go to Appaloosa and come
down
on
and
to
come out
Green.
to Green and come out to the
Right.
light.
Yeah, so we could be in a
Yeah.
we could drive through that residential area, do the Appaloosa turn, and then hit Green Street intersection, which is what we urge our parents to do. So every single day, orientation night, everyone's given a map of what to do. Guys, don't make that left turn, even though it's allowed, don't do it, you're gonna get busted, right?
And our teenager.
But it's, you know, it's a sign, that's all they do.
sure. No, and that is a good solution, and it's a fair and legal solution
Yeah.
to take the road that you just mentioned. Palooza? La Palooza, right,
Appaloosa,
okay.
and then it hits Green Street.
Yes, right, and I've driven on that road a couple of times. It is a residential neighborhood, steep hills, of
Yes,
course,
it
but
is.
it's a public way, so you're entitled to do that,
It's a
so.
3-minute thing to get from there to there.
I just wanted to address a couple of things. Number one, the long-term plan, and then the short-term plan that the town and MassDOT are discussing. So the longer-term plan that Paul outlined earlier is to create a project from South Street to really the eastern limits. So the Christmas Tree Shop Plaza, that area. And when I say long-term plan, we've done all of the planning part, and now we know what we want for a project generally. The next stage is part, as Paul outlined, is that we're going to create what we call create a MassDOT project, create a real project that is tracked, and we can start to design and ultimately move into construction. So we're actively working on that now. We anticipate that in April, we have a project review committee. We're anticipating that in April they will take that project up and hopefully move it through quickly because we have done a lot of advance work within the department to move that project along. Now that's only a piece of it, because then we need to actually do the design and then find construction funding. And that's where we work with our partners in the MPO to look for construction funding. We look internally to see what revenue sources we have or resources we have. Realistically, though, if we create a project in April or May, we're talking 4 or 5 years before you see something in the ground. Right, but that's a big project. That's a $10 to $12 to $13 million project that will clean up all of the issues along that corridor. So we are moving forward in that direction. We haven't identified construction funding. We're working on it. But in the short term, and when I say we, MassDOT and the town of Shrewsbury, we are actively discussing what to do with South Street and whether or not we should restrict that left turn. It's not an easy thing to do. When you restrict a turn, you force turns in other locations, and we want to make sure that we don't create a worse situation somewhere else by restricting that turn. There's an expectation when a person on South Street arrives at this intersection, there's an expectation they're going to be able to make that left. And they might just go ahead and make that left turn, regardless of the sign that we put there, or if we put that sign there or not. So there are implications with that. We want to make sure that whatever we do, we're not making the situation worse. But the town and MassDOT are engaged in conversation on that now. Regarding some type of signage on Route 20, school signage, well, the MUTCD, the Massachusetts Manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices, thank you very much, does not allow us to put school signs other than along the immediate frontage of the school. but there may be some other type of lights that we could put in, a warning light of some type, and we will talk to the town about that as well. So those would all be shorter term improvements that we would look at.
Why don't you do what you did over at the Y, where it basically forces people to go one way and you still
Yeah.
have room? Because I saw that
Yeah.
they enlarged that, because
Yeah.
people were still turning
Right.
left.
Yeah, they
And
put
made
it,
it larger.
Sure.
at the Y, they put the curve, so you can't
Yes.
take.
You
well,
can't take a left.
You can take the left, but it
It's
says.
it's very difficult,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And so we did look at that too. So geometrically, we always want to put something there that does not allow someone to do it, to curve, right, so that they can't make it. You need space to do that. There's no space at that intersection. We need to widen in order to create some type of an island to do that effectively, which is why we need a bigger project in order to come in and do it the right way.
Why can't you have a light that on both South Streets, that are both red at the same time and both green at the same time?
Right. Right. So we've looked at that as well, and I'll let maybe somebody else address the specifics on that. But you know, just as a traffic engineer in the past, you get a feel for locations that are not going to be good for traffic signals, right? Where you're going to create more rear-end accidents than other accidents that that you are going to prevent. And I don't know where that one, if you go back to the other slide. In a higher speed location, this is certainly a higher speed corridor, we all agree. It's hard enough to stop here, and we do have people trying to blow through. Speeds are just as high here. If we introduce another signal there, we are going to introduce rear-end crashes on day one. And so a traffic signal is not the solution for that location. Now, maybe you guys looked into it more
Even if
deeply.
it was synchronized, like the gentleman said, like it's a red, it's
Right.
gonna turn green by the time you get there.
I can talk about that. Yes, the synchronization was definitely looked at when we studied that application, but to Barry's point, you're already going down, you know, what you mentioned before, you're going with that speed, somebody's going to try to make that light, even if it turns from yellow to red. So people are going to keep speeding as they are today. The enforcement may help with that, but if people are going to choose to speed now, they're going to choose to speed then, especially to go through another signal that's so closely spaced, because they don't want to stop again on another application. But also when we were looking at this, in order to allow some space between the signals, even for South Street to come out and access Route 20, we had to get Route 20 at South and Green to be 4 lanes wide going westbound in order to create some storage space, pull out all the turning vehicles from there, and have South Street vehicles come out, take that left, and be able to enter Route 20. Otherwise, have a backup through your own intersection, you wouldn't be able to get in there. So I had to balance the needs of...
I'm just imagining with that 4 lane, the left turn is not happening.
I can attest to that, because I live on the other end, I live on the Edgemere end, and I take a left out of that onto 4 lane every single day.
In this option, yes. Well, this is where we're showing the no left turn. This is a right turn only.
She's down.
No, I'm down further.
Right, she's
I'm almost
Edgemere,
at the
yeah.
west corner.
Right, yeah.
And you can't get out of my street now, you make this thing
That's it,
there's
you're done.
just traffic from that Market Basket Plaza alone, we're not gonna be able to get up, take right, I don't wanna take a left.
Yeah.
And we obviously don't qualify for the, whatever the terms are for the volume, because we're too small neighborhoods.
Right,
So,
right.
which, it seems like you could put something that's motion censored, so you could, but I guess this is some kind of standard, I don't understand.
There are traffic signal warrants that we have to meet, and they're federal warrants. And I don't believe South Street or the location in Edgemere you're talking about would ever meet them.
There's some questions on the other side of the room. Woman there in the pink. Yep, you. Yep.
Missy.
Yep.
Missy Dallemack, I live off of Route 20, between the Hills Farm, Stony Hill Road.
Yep.
But I, like everyone, drive down there, the whole area. And I know the big master plan is big, and some of the things I don't know if you've considered, things like rotaries, a traffic circle, or whatever you want to call them, in this area. There are other things besides lights. There are Jersey jug handles, whatever, and I know it does require additional property purchases, but, you know, there are other ways other than just lights. And then also, you know, making a road where it's only right turn only. Well, if anyone's gone to the Y, you know how well that's ignored. I mean, people are constantly making a left there, and there are accidents again because of the rise. The other question is, and to almost maybe help Alhambra in their immediate concerns, let's be creative. Are there other ways, other lights that can be put on a state highway, possibly, you know, heavily congested area, have a light letting people know about that. There's wetlands there, so are we having endangered species crossing this part of the road, or the vernal pools that we, you know, so, you know, is there some other designation flashing light that we can put there that would allow them to do that?
Sure, I like your creativity.
I'm sorry?
I like your creativity.
You know, that's, you know, we got wetlands there, but, you know, so, and then the other thing is lining up this 2 South Streets kind of thing, and the whole big idea is, it's a big strip down there. We have, you know, a lot of trucking depots, we have it's a very odd mix of people, you know, and we all have different driving styles. I mean, I've been hit 3 times in 5 years, and within a mile of the entrance of my home, and one of them was even in a car wash. So it's just not being crazy, it's just the whole mentality you get in that area there, and people just go crazy. But we're gonna be adding more on there. So again, making sure, you know, this 20-year plan was really flexible, so all of a sudden if we get, you know, triple the size of our train station, is that gonna be accommodating that? The whole UPS complex that's gonna be coming into Grafton, Shrewsbury area, you know, how that's all gonna be affecting, because again, we're gonna be having hundreds of trucks coming out of the new UPS. So again, you know, kind of being a little more creative, but if we can help the school right now, because it's not just the school, I mean, it's not just you know, I worry about the children as well, but, you know, when I'm pulling out down, when I'm going down that hill, there's that grade, there's also underground springs in that area. So that road freezes, you know, like this, you know, and the highway department, they do a great job, but, you know, New England, the temperature drops a degree, the ice is over. And you've got the hill, the rise, and the
Sun
traffic.
glare.
Sorry?
Sun glare, yeah.
So, you know, again, it's, you know, other people, you can't stop there even if you want to. So just kind of, you know, trying to think a little more creatively.
Great, thank you, thank you. Up against the wall.
So I'm just curious, over here, so you guys said that you can't make an intersection between South Street and Green Street?
Yep, is that easier too?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can't make an intersection between South Street and Green Street. Is it possible to make a bridge or something?
I know. That's a good thought. That's a great thought. I appreciate you raising that. So generally, you don't bridge over wetlands. This isn't my expertise, so I'm looking to vary a little bit. But the idea is that even a bridge over wetlands would still impact the habitat, and that's what it's meant to protect. And then also bridges carry a pretty significant cost, usually because you're building it that way. Those are two of the things I'm thinking of. I don't know if you have something to add.
Also, it's permitting the bridge over such a thing.
Right.
They might just tell us go ahead build the seal instead of the bridge at that point.
Right.
So permitting of a bridge over wetlands would be difficult to get from the MIPA, the Environmental Protection Agency.
Right. So the permitting we're talking about is there's all these laws in place to protect wetlands and sensitive habitats like that, and often the laws require that you try and avoid all impacts if possible. So if there's any other way to get cars through an area, in the case of roads, then you should be taking that. And that's why we generally try and avoid it, because if we can prove you can use the road system to make that same turn, it's really hard to get the permit to kind of justify that impact.
I think you hit on all the right points, right? And you hit on the expense point too. I mean, a bridge alone to span that gap could be $3 to $5 million. And that's if we were able to receive the permitting for it.
I'm just
But it's a good
skeptical
thought. It's a
of
good
the
thought.
impossibility of a traffic signal, because I've seen locations that are close or closer that do have traffic signals. So I don't know how impossible it really is to not have one of any sort at all at any
The
point.
merge to Route 9 and the Wegman light. and
Whole
then
Foods and that.
All those 3 areas
Boston.
right down the road on Route 20. Well, is it Route 20 at that point? Yeah. It's still Route 20.
Yeah.
They have traffic lights, and I understand what you're saying with speed.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the physics of it all, but, and it's a very good answer, but then why up there? There's the same kind of issue up there, I would say. And there's delivery trucks that are going into that area.
So the speeds are actually slower up in that area. There's a lot more going on adjacent to the roadway, and people react to that by slowing down. There are a lot of driveways in that vicinity also. The speeds through here, they're 55 miles an hour or higher sometimes as we try to go through the light at Green Street, South Street. So you're talking two different environments when you're considering coordinated, close traffic signals.
But is that how the decision was made, based on the speed of those areas? Because there are 3 right in a row.
Sure.
Closer than ours, perhaps.
Absolutely. Right, but it's one factor that goes into the decision of whether or not to cite a traffic signal at an intersection. And I think that, I won't speak for everybody, but in my opinion, citing a traffic signal at South Street would create rear-end crashes.
Yeah,
very quickly.
I understand that.
But I think we've talked about, how there can be some creative solutions, outside of signals, in addition to the left turn prohibition. Are there other ways to kind of make people aware of it? I'm going to go to you right there in the back.
So, my own sister, she was in one of the car crashes there, and I cannot tell you how worried me and my family were for her. She was in a hospital, she was rushed to it, and when she came back home, we were all really worried, but at the same time we were happy she was better. So my real question is, why can't you just put some kind of sign to indicate that there's a school there and they need to slow down? Somewhere before, right after the South Street signal on the crossing.
Even before Green Street, I think the main problem between South Street and Route 20 is the speed at this section. So if we can find a sign, even a little bit before Green Street to slow down, or like a speed limit where it's less than the 50 or the 55 miles the cars are usually going by. So now the cars are getting used to that, and then after Green Street there should be a sign that there is a school there. I've been a teacher for the last 10 years, and all the public schools in the area, and I worked in different public systems, and every time there is a school across from a highway or a freeway, there is a flashing light at the time where there is the kids are going to school or where they're leaving, and it's flashing, indicating that there is a school there and you need to slow down. So I'm not sure why is this school a special case.
Well, I think I appreciate the feedback, and thank you for sharing the story. I'm really sorry that you had to go through that. To your question on that, I really, I think the regulations are pretty clear, because it seems like something that if MassDOT was able to introduce it, I feel like they would be on top of that and do it pretty quickly.
You're talking about a school warning sign
on Route 20.
On Route 20. So the regulations are very clear on that. We could put up school warning signs along the roadway that the school fronts on. And so that would be on South Street. So we could go out to Route 20 and put up school warning signs there. That doesn't mean that we can't go out and put up some other type of a flashing beacon. So, and I think that's something we're going to go back and take a look at. It's not a red, yellow, green stop and go traffic signal, but you've seen them where it's an overhead beacon that flashes yellow in one direction and red in the other direction. And that just indicates that there's something special, something different about that location. There's more caution. So we're going to go back and take a look at that idea.
In the back.
Yeah, hi. Two thoughts here on the right turn problem. Short term. This is short term. Let's make up some solutions. We're all being creative. I think it's great. And you guys probably roll your eyes.
Not at all.
On the right turn, South Street, we had a pretty passionate discussion about how that can be difficult, and it is. I have made that turn. It's really got to jump on acceleration. Is there a way, in some states, we have metered ramps onto freeways where you have a light, and then, there's some system that tracks the traffic, and then obviously and that's more loading the ramp and the queuing on the ramp. But is it possible to do something similar linked to the light that's there now, so that when that light is red, the light to make a right turn on South Street is green. When that light goes green, that light goes red to at least indicate that there's traffic moving through that intersection.
And so just to clarify, in this case, there would be only a right turn from South Street allowed, and you would have a signal just for that right turn tied into the South Green Street intersection.
This is in the short term.
Yep.
You can get the road wide, you can
Yep.
wait to accelerate a little
Yep.
bit control.
So just to get to that, that's not something I'm familiar with.
So what we would have to do to make that happen is we would have to shut down all traffic at the Green 20 South intersection, and then let South Street move on a green. So it's very unconventional, and it would be unconventional for people using it. And we really like to stick with conventional approaches because people know how to use them. As soon as we introduce something.
With the traffic, there must be a pretty significant difference between the traffic that would either exit Green Street headed eastbound or South Street headed eastbound, and the through traffic that would come.
There would be, but people exiting South Street, making that left-hand turn to head towards Christmas Tree Plaza, they're pulling around that corner, accelerating, expecting to keep moving at a higher rate of speed, only to be very quickly put under stop control. So we did not look at that in detail, that idea.
I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thanks for your feedback. Right here in the blue sweater.
Can I assume that the study's been in effect for about 5 or 6 years? And how adaptable will it be with the development that's going into the Edgemere Drive property? And what comparison notes have you done with the developer to implement into this study that I presume has been longer than that announcement?
So I could answer that question. Again, I'm Kristen Lassie, Assistant Town Manager. Some of you came in late, so I just wanted to reintroduce myself. Mass DOT, the Town of Shrewsbury, and the developer at the Edgemere Drive-In have been fully coordinated in all of this planning. We were made aware of this Route 20 corridor study. As soon as we knew that the Edgemere Drive-In was going to be redeveloped, we at that time got a meeting with all of us together. So the improvements that you saw on the concept plan at Lake Street and Route 20 are exactly what will be built according to the plan, because we were in full concert with each other throughout the planning process.
So the numbers are in comparative?
The numbers are comparative, and I know someone talked about the UPS facility, if that potentially comes in. We have been in close contact, our town planning department, the regional planning commission. We have taken into account all of the potential development that could happen along the corridor to build out the master plan here. So obviously there's some things that we may not be aware of, but we have taken into account all of the potential development that could occur along the immediate Route 20 corridor, as well as the thoroughfares that come into Route 20.
Right, and I'd add on to what Kristen said, not only did we take a look at project-generated traffic from potential projects, but we also added on kind of a background growth rate to catch things that we might not know are coming our way or might be tied to regional growth. So that was also included in the increased traffic numbers. In the green.
Yeah, so, could you maybe put, right here, a yellow flashing light? Like, when the people, when the trucks are coming through, they slow down. So, just like a yellow flashing light that's always flashing just right there. It's just, and then the people will slow down, and then speed up, slowly.
Sure, thanks for that suggestion. I think that's something that we've been talking about, for sure. In the pink?
So, I wanted to just, looking at all the suggestions here, I live off Puritan Street.
Yep.
There is no left side right there, and I just live opposite. Right, that's the junction where you guys have all the market basket and all that stuff. And I see off and on people taking a left. The sign is right there, so I don't think ever that left side is going to really help as much, right? Whether you make it 4 lane, 3 lanes, right now it is a 3 lane right there, but it is a very constricted site, right where the sign is. So that left side, I would caution that it is kind of a false sense of security, right? False sense of safety. And it generally has not helped. I've seen a lot of accidents right there. And coming to Puritan Street itself, I don't know whether you have a slide on that. I heard there's a cul-de-sac coming in there. You know, it's a high volume traffic. I see people speeding out. I've reached out to Preston, I've reached out to a lot of people in the past.
So is that kind of a concrete plan to cut off that exit itself from Route 20?
Yes, so the town of Shrewsbury has been working again with DOT and the developer of the Edgemere Drive-In project. We held a public meeting with the residents of Puritan Street about a month and a half ago, and we have designed a concept plan to have Puritan Street be a cul-de-sac, a dead end, so there would be no access into Puritan Street or out of Puritan Street from Route 20, and that was unanimously recommended by the residents in that area.
So I was out of fence without that time. Is there a plan for the water supply line itself on Puritan Street and Old Grafton line? I don't know if that's out of the entire topic here. But is there a plan? Because I have been reaching out. Bob was there, he retired, and I got like all kinds of water coming into my house. So I know it's kind of out of the context out here, but is there a plan for it?
So why don't we talk offline and we can talk about that. Sure.
Right up front here.
Could you go to the next slide after?
This one here?
So following the pattern of creative ideas, I see that. So first, I'm actually very intrigued that you want to expand this to a four-way intersection. I think that's just four-way lanes, and that's very ambitious of you guys. But at the same time, you have these 2 lanes coming. I'm assuming that goes all the way back 2 lanes, probably 3 lanes there. What about the idea of expanding this to a 3-lane? If you're willing to do 2 lanes or 4 lanes on the entire corridor, expanding that to another lane right here, again like the ramp idea. So we have gradual increase in speed,
So
and then obviously a road curve, right, and acceleration, just so we can. For that, I just don't think there's going to be a no left turn sign here, or no?
In this future plan, no.
No?
There is a no left turn sign, and there's also a physical barrier here.
Okay.
That would you'd have to drive over to turn left.
So I just think that expanding that, I don't know what's here, bike laneway or a sidewalk. I'm going to be honest, I've never heard of anyone trying to walk on a sidewalk next to a 50-mile-an-hour.
Oh, no, there are joggers that go down.
Jogger, that's concerning to me
But
because
so
that's a 50-mile-an-hour.
just so I have your comment correct, what you're saying is why not add
Expand
an extra
third
lane
lane.
eastbound there,
Mhm.
so that when you're turning right from South Street, you're
At
in
least
your
you have
own
the-
lane
yeah.
and you can kind of come up to speed. Great.
Just to get up to the acceleration that these individuals
Yep,
are coming down
I know
at
what
50
you mean.
miles an hour. Just that bare right turn. I just think expanding that, allowing, and you can cut it off I don't know, by the, that's too far, I think, by the.
What we would actually do is we'd actually look at the profile of the road.
Mhm.
If we were to consider a climbing lane, you'd look at the profile of the road, meaning the elevation change,
Yeah.
and how fast at kind of a standard acceleration rate it would take. So there's like an engineering solution to that if we were to look into that. So thank you for the suggestion.
I just believe that if you're expanding it to 2 lanes, or you're gonna have a 4-lane corridor, it makes sense that you could just add that 1 lane just for that acceleration. Because there are kids that, this goes down, I know they were talking about the school, there's multiple neighborhoods going down, kids that are going to the high school, Shrewsbury High School, that are coming up here, the high schools, I think down there, so they're doing this, they should be able to have that safety in that term, just like.
Thank you.
peace of
For
mind.
sure.
Traffic engineering.
I know, nicely done.
Right here in the yellow.
Would it help if you were to enforce police officers there, so that if someone were to speed or cross a red light, they could ticket them, so then people would be less likely to speed?
Absolutely, police presence would help reduce speeding, for sure, for sure. Thank you.
Also, maybe there could be a kind of area here, so you could tilt more and it would be easier to go.
I think that sounds a lot like what he suggested, right? Cool, great, thank you, thank you. Yes, you.
So, so I heard you were saying that you could so over here, you want to make, there's a road that goes all the way over the end into South Street. So, if you could go back to the other side.
I can?
Yeah. So, maybe, instead of going over this pond, we can, instead we can go right over here, because then we're not going over any pond or water, then we're just going over the land, so we don't have to worry about building a huge bridge.
That's a very good thought, thank you. We did look into that, and one of the issues is, it's really hard to build a road in kind of a confined area, so there's not really enough space here to fit a road, and then you're also dealing with a pretty different, there's a difference in elevation too that's tied into it, but I do appreciate the comment. Yes?
Should we go to Grafton Street?
Yes.
So this intersection has been the top 10, I believe, most dangerous intersections in Massachusetts for at least the 20 years that I've lived on Route 20. So can we talk about when you said this federal funds already in place, what's the timeline for improving that intersection?
So the project is under design now. I believe we're approaching what we call a 25% design, which is about 50% complete. And it's currently not programmed on the tip, as you mentioned before. But we're actively working with the MPO in order to program the project. So we should know fairly soon where the project will be, but I don't have that answer for you.
So when you say all of that, that says to me it's pipe dream still. So is that, are we talking, it's in the 5-year range? Are we talking it's in the 2-year range? What's 25 to soon?
Sure. So the way this often works is as we get the projects ready for advertisement and the project design is complete, we're in a much better position to go in and advocate for construction funds. We don't already have construction funds identified, so we're aggressively trying to complete the design, which will put us in a good position to get some construction funding. I just don't have that date for you yet.
Well, it's just, I guess, I think what people, because, this is a room full of district residents, right? So we're trying to understand when you're talking about this is the master plan, and we know that Market Basket's happening, right? So that has a timeline, and then that traffic volume in itself is going to exacerbate every single one of these other problems we're talking about. So I think what everybody in this room, and don't let me speak for all of you, but wants to know is, what does that mean and how soon? Because we're mitigating problems with maps coming out of our school for people to go through neighborhoods. And I lived in Edgemere before I moved to the little neighborhood behind the Dunkin' Donuts that closed there. And our instruction to every single one of our kids is do not go on a green light ever. Wait and look and be sure, because those GPS trucks blow that every single day. And so that's just been our kids' basic driving 101 before they even got out. In our neighborhood, you also don't go up the left, you go up one of the 2 streets on the right, because you have a longer view. It's all driving that they had to learn really quick. But what I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, what is the time? Because some of these things must have, I would hope, would have an actual definitive time on them. So can you tell us what in this master plan that's already a project has a time and what that is?
Well, I can say it's much sooner than it is later in this 0 to 20-year time horizon. I can tell you that we're aggressively moving the design forward so that we're ready to take advantage of funding that becomes available, and that we're working with the funding agency in Central Massachusetts.
What's your best guess?
Yeah. So that's where I get in trouble.
Yeah. But are you saying right now we're working on a design that we can propose for next calendar year's mid-list? I mean, because is that what you're saying?
Right.
Or is it could be, because we know that the bid lists come out annually.
We can't actually advertise and bid the project until we have the construction funding. So the steps are, concurrently, we're trying to acquire that construction funding while we complete the design, and then more often than not, it all comes together and we're able to advertise the project pretty quickly. So I wish I could tell you a date and give you something a little more definitive. 6 months from now or a year from now, I think it would be much better shape to tell you that.
But we have that at Lake Street, because that is an actual project, right? So can a town or somebody tell me what that one is? Okay, we're holding this one. But
So the time frame for Lake Street, I can tell you, so the Edgemere Drive-In was permitted by the planning board in January of this year. They currently have their 25% design plans in front of Mass DOT. We do have funding for the project, so we expect some construction to potentially occur in the late fall of 2021, moving forward to 2022 and probably ending in 2023. So that is the timeline that is currently before us for the Edgemere Drive-In Lake Street Route 20 intersection.
Great, I'm going to go to the group for some more questions. Over against the window.
A quick question. So, well, maybe I'll make it longer, but so when would Market Basket be actually opening? Not till the road was completed, or prior to that?
I can't speak for the developer of when they plan to open. They have been talking about potentially opening some items, but what they're allowed to open depends on the construction of the road and the condition of the road. So I don't want to speak on that this evening without the developer present.
All right, so could I follow up? Anyway, my name is Linda Sarkissian. I've lived off of Route 20 for many, many years, and many times thought I should move, especially when my son became 16. So I totally understand the worry about children driving and schools and so forth. I've seen many fatalities where I am. I'm at the Worcester line. There was a school bus that was involved in an accident. You know, there's always fatalities, and I think that one of the things that concerns me is the speed. That why not slow it down a little bit? And I used to walk the baby carriage twice on Route 20 to get to Edgemere, and those UPS trucks practically blew me off, you know, the road. I said, okay, not doing that ever again. So anyway, I think it should slow down. I think that everybody that's a resident along Route 20 educates everybody that comes to their house, and it's scary, you know, and if I don't educate people, you know, mistakes happen. I've seen, you know, anyway, so it's just, it is, right, you need to tell, and it's not fair to put that burden on us as people, because it's not just Route 20. There's a lot of residences around, schools and so forth. But anyway, thank you.
Right here.
I live right off of Route 20, right on Grafton and Route 20. And it is possibly one of the most dangerous intersections. This gentleman here who had his car totaled there. We were on Grafton Street, ready at that light, and saw a huge accident because they're coming up the hill and they don't stop, or they're going too fast up the hill and they come up to the light there. I mean, there's got to be a way. I mean, this is, as you said in your presentation, that it has been identified as one of the most dangerous intersections. Do something. This is the DOT. Do something. Put up an arrow. There's got to be a left turn arrow right there at that light, and people have been begging for it, and nothing has happened. There have been so many accidents there, and people right across from Flynn's, and right at that intersection there, it is so dangerous. The UPS trucks come in, they barrel across, and you don't know what to do. It is so dangerous that you have to do something. You have to have either signs and telling people, have a police presence there if that's what you have to do. Have something to make the people slow down there, and make the UPS trucks slow down. Make the people slow down as they're coming up the hill. It is so dreadful. People have been killed there, many people. So it's up to DOT. Shrewsbury can't do it. They need the DOT to do it. And it needs to be done not 6 months from now, not a year from now. It needs to be done now.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes. I just want to go back to the gentleman's answer regarding this gentleman's suggestion about having the lights synchronized on South Street. Mm-hmm. And his answer was the speed. And that's the reason you cannot have synchronized lights there, because people will be coming with the high speed.
Right.
I understand that, but they will be already stopped, because if the South Street is green and South Street is green, Route 20 is red. So where's the speed coming from?
For the most part, you're correct, but for that person that will go through one yellow at one light, will anticipate to go through the other light to stop.
No.
But
he's already stopped at Route 20 at this moment.
I'm talking about the cars that are not stopped on the complete red. if they're trying to rush.
Yeah, but there's a moment between the red and the green.
Yes.
And anywhere you go, it's like
Yes.
a given. But if South Street is green, South Street is green, Route 20 is red, everybody stops. So these people can get out, and those people can get out. There's no issue for the speed.
Yep, I hear you on that. I think.
It makes sense. So what's the cost to add a light there, I guess is the question.
It wasn't so much the cost that we had.
Because the speed is not the issue.
Well, I think one part of it is that, you know, when you're talking about engineering things to be safe, you know, you're not talking about a 1 in 100 event,
I understand
you know,
that,
and
but
things
that
like
gentleman
that.
said, the only reason, they looked into it because it made sense,
Right.
but he referred to this gentleman and he answered it, and the only reason he gave was the speed.
I wasn't the only reason that I gave, no. When I talked about putting two signals close together, you wouldn't be able to avoid blockage of one intersection or the other. So to allow you to safely
But as
come
far as
out
the
of
blockage, you have twice a day. That's,
Right.
they come in.
it's
and
twice the day that
just
you
one
are
sec-
using your intersection
One
as
second,
well,
just
correct?
one second. No, but here, you're 100%, but there's a huge difference. Huge difference, I'll explain it to you. Twice a day you have blockage. I get it. But if these children using it twice a day, that's a huge difference. One child, one family loses one child, you cannot put a price on
I'm
that.
not disagreeing with
So being blocked for 10 minutes twice a day, it can't compare it to losing
What he's
a
talking
lot.
about block is he's saying is the traffic is backed up.
understand what he's saying.
To get out because no one, there's gonna be traffic, there'll be a car.
No, if there is no, I know what he's saying. If there is a red light here,
Yes.
okay, people are slowing down. Or if there's yellow, people are definitely slowing down by time, like, they have a chance to get out. And they have a chance to take a red turn. Even if you do that and put no left, that would work. Then you guarantee no accidents taking left. Makes
Sure,
sense?
I hear you, and I agree on all the points that you're making. The best that we could do, at least with the numbers that we looked on the development, so with the growing numbers of developments coming in, any general background growth from people coming to move into the area and whatnot. If I keep adding those numbers in and try to fit them into one signal, the Route 20 traffic can back up into your intersection on South Street, effectively not creating any gaps for you, and if you have the green to enter the Route 20 flow. So if you're not going to have a safe gap to enter when the opposite traffic is coming, that's a safety issue for you. So that's what I'm trying to get.
That makes perfect sense. So if we do that, and then we do a no left turn, then it would work perfect. Then you have definitely no issues. People have to rush to take a right. Make sense?
Yes, for the right turns of the different stuff.
So that's the only thing that makes sense. And you have a lot of children going out and going in, and not just to school. You have neighborhoods there. There are people that are using that road. That's their life, daily. If they want to get milk, they have to go through that. If they want bread, they have to run to that road. And they have to meet an 18-wheeler every single time. First-time drivers, that's their first-time drivers have to go through that road. Would you put your first-time driver there? No, you wouldn't.
Well,
Nobody.
I would actually
It's
advise them not to
scary.
turn left there, for sure.
So,
so
you could advise them, but again, like to the lady's point, teenagers, you can advise as much as you want, but your heart will be with them and not caught every single time.
Now, for the sake of time, because we only have this room until 9 o'clock, and we'll be available, so what I'd like to do is take 2 or 3 more questions not related to South Street, just to make sure we hear about everything. We'll have a station set up to talk through South Street that we'll be at and can kind of record. There's not, you can talk to us about it. You can also, we have flyers at the door with the email address for this so that you can send your comments there. And there's a link to the study with more information as well. So why don't I take like 2 or 3 more questions as not related to South Street and Green Street. In the green. No, behind you, sorry.
My comment kind of overlays a lot of what's been said tonight. The speed is too high, trailer trucks are banging into cars, people can't get out of their driveways, they can't get out of their streets. So let's add bicycles and pedestrians. Because they stand a whole lot better chance against a trailer truck than a car. I just don't understand that 50-mile-an-hour highway, why you're putting the pedestrian and bike paths. Just makes no sense.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think to answer your question, MassDOT has a policy that bicycles and pedestrians should be accommodated
No matter what.
on all streets.
No matter how deadly.
Well, the idea is that you design it in a way
We can kill someone.
that it's safe. Okay, so I'm going to take the question over here from
And
you.
if they can't, they do it anyhow?
I'm sorry, your question
If
was?
they can't design it so it's safe, they're just gonna include it anyhow?
They wouldn't include it if it isn't safe. It's a shared use path. There's design standards for that kind of facility along high-speed roadways that they'd be following. So your question?
It's been brought up a few times, but I really addressed it. Why does it seem like it's set in stone? The speed limit is what it is. Why the last meeting you mentioned that the speed limit was based on the actual speed of the car. It doesn't make any sense. Most cars go faster than the speed limit, so would that creep up? But why in this area, any area, why can't
So the question he said is that speed has been brought up a few different times. Why is it the case that the speed limit for an area is set by the speeds that cars actually drive? I actually don't know the reason, but that is the law. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a question we get all the time.
That's how it works.
Right.
The speed limit should be 60 at 35.
Right.
And then 65 and 70.
So what we do is we measure speeds, and we look at groups of 100, 200, 300 vehicles to see what speed they're driving at. And then we look at a number called the 85th percentile. So it's the number at 85 out of every 100 people are comfortable at driving, and 15% are exceeding that number. So in this case, we might get an 85th percentile speed of, 50 or 55 miles an hour. We're able to, by law, set the speed limits within about 7 miles per hour of that. So you're probably right. We probably get an 85th percentile speed out here of 60 miles an hour, and we set it lower to try to, try and have a lower speed limit. It doesn't matter what we, at the end of the day, what we set the speed limit at. People will drive where they feel comfortable, unless there's constant enforcement. Which you just can't do. There aren't enough police officers.
You don't have any
out there.
cameras, you can't take pictures?
Yeah. That's not allowed by Massachusetts law. So we've got very specific speed regulation and speed zoning laws that we live within. And so that's where we are.
Wouldn't the plans change what's comfortable with these intersections?
So what we do after a project like this, let's say we go out and we widen the corridor, and the design tries to slow speeds down by doing things like narrowing lane widths. The studies show that.
How about placing two stoplights close to each other?
Yeah.
Like maybe they did on the other side, like we talked about earlier, and I still don't understand your reasoning. You did it on the other side where the Wegmans Plaza is. It's not done on this side because the speed there is slower and the speed here is higher. I don't understand.
Yeah.
I really don't understand.
Sure.
So, point number one, why not enforce, right? We make money by enforcing. We write tickets, right? You give us money.
Absolutely right.
Point number two, nobody discussed the Twilight Zone situation of Walnut Street trying to enter onto Route 20 when there are two cars side by side, both unsiding each other. Like, good God, like, do people know this is the case? Like, I can't move from my left lane because the right car is blocking my eyesight coming down Route 20 going west. He can't move because he can't see who's coming east on Route 20. Like, that's a reasonable situation, but come on.
Did I say that was a reasonable situation?
No, this has been brought up, it's been stated, it's been put down on paper, right? What is being done about this? This is going on now, this morning, right? I mean, this is happening as we're speaking. There's no solution. Point number three, a lot of people have developed along Route 20 and made a lot of money from big developments along Route 20. There's no money for these projects. Like, how do we, as a town, recoup money from people who made money off of using Route 20 to actually take care of the roads and safety of our townspeople? And that's a question not for you, that's a question for the town, right? So, I mean,
Great, I'm just going to take one more question. A gentleman against the wall there.
Yeah, hi.
You know, I was just wondering on the Grafton Street and Route 20, I know that the light times have changed. Is there any data on the safety on that? Because I know MassDOT has done some things on that intersection now, and I've seen it much safer since the timing changes. Is there any data on how much safer it is, or too soon to tell on that?
I don't know if we have any data on that yet, do we? No, not yet. But
Not yet, but I just want to know that you guys have done some things to actually make it a little bit safer, and that has done something, at least anecdotally, it seems much safer.
Okay.
All right, so again, we're going to wrap up the question and answer period, but our consultants and DOT and myself will stay along. We'll probably have to wrap up about 10 till 9 because we don't want to help close down the library this evening. Again, I really want to thank everyone for coming out and those of you who had to leave. This is an amazing turnout and great community engagement. We appreciate your feedback. Again, please feel free to take a pamphlet on your way out to review the study in further detail and provide feedback. We are in the final draft form of the report and would love to consider your feedback moving forward. But thank you again for coming out tonight. And again, we have about 10-15 minutes before we formally wrap up. Thank you. Thank you.